When it comes to holidays, we have more than just Santa and his reindeer. Around the world, some traditions are outright eerie and bone-chilling. A fitting example of one such folklore would be the Yule Cat, or Jólakötturinn in Icelandic, a massive, intimidating creature. This creature isn't looking for milk or mice, and is certainly not one adorable kitty cat. It is known for prowling around at Christmas, eyeing folks who haven't managed to get new clothes by Christmas Eve. In Hellboy Yule Cat, Hellboy, our favorite well-meaning half-demon, tangles with this mythical monster. This comic isn't a usual festive cheer. Things get rough for our demon-turned-hero, and the ferocious Yule Cat ensures Hellboy's holiday season is anything but chill. The comic kicked off with birds perched on a statue in Reykjavik, chattering about Hellboy, the Jotun-born giant slayer who was heading their way. They were wondering if he was in town for the Yule Cat, the legendary giant feline that had been freaking out the locals and had the town on edge. While Iceland plunged into its long, dark winter and everyone was gearing up for holiday cheer, Hellboy was in Reykjavik on a different mission. Hellboy, the red-skinned detective, was lurking on the chilly streets of Reykjavik in 1990, chasing down tales of a colossal cat that was on the loose and had been spooking the locals. The professor filled him in on everything that had been going on around town. Mr. Hell, as the kids like to call him, was told about the Yule Cat, a huge creature from local lore, which was causing quite a stir. However, the anthropology professor enlightened Hellboy that the kids were so petrified by the terrors of the vicious cat that there used to be a townfolk, Gisli, who had just left town and moved, but the kids suspected that he was devoured by the whiskered menace. The anthropology professor continued that although the townspeople did not believe in the Yule Cat, something was clearly up. Sheep were vanishing, leaving behind just bones and wool. The townsfolk were skeptical about a man-eating cat on the loose, but there was no ignoring the weird stuff going down about town. Tourists were chased off the road by a giant beast. Kids reported terrifying encounters with a huge beast, and then nights were filled with these creepy nocturnal howls. Topping the horror, it was the Yule season, which made it more unnatural and sinister. Hellboy's interest was piqued, and he sensed that it wasn't just some old legend. There was something strange afoot. Hellboy was now on the case and was ready to track down this legendary feline before it wreaked more havoc. He rang the BPRD headquarters in Connecticut for some intel on this mythical cat and finds out that it was linked to Grýla, a giantess from Icelandic myth. This call does more than just shed light on the Yule Cat. It also sheds light on Hellboy's reasons for being in town and ties this special issue to the broader Hellboy universe, and teases more Nordic adventures down the line. It also hinted at Hellboy's past dealings when he wielded Thor's hammer in the comic titled Hellboy: The Bones of Giants, and had been facing some psychic baggage due to the incident. But before Hellboy could get too deep into the lore, a distant, ominous howl interrupts the call. Turns out the Yule Cat wasn't just a legend after all, and it was not long before this fearsome creature showed up, ready to stir up some real trouble in Hellboy's holiday. Hellboy tangled with the ferocious cat in town, but suddenly finds himself transported somewhere in the snow, where it takes a more humanish form. He also finds himself in the middle of hordes of trolls, which presumably belonged to the cloaked monster, haggard and overall grotesque. The beast looked every bit scary and menacing, with a long mane, giant teeth, and eyes spitting fire. Hellboy gets into a fight with the summoned trolls, and it can certainly be implied that the band of trolls that Hellboy fights were the Yule Lads. Nevertheless, it doesn't take long for Hellboy to overpower them. He then focused on the beast, who had once again returned to the look of the cat. The fight was violent and biting. The Yule Cat, towering and fierce, presented a real challenge even for someone as tough as Hellboy. Hellboy, armed with his iconic right hand of doom, engaged in a fierce battle with this mythical feline. It was a classic David and Goliath scenario, but with a supernatural spin, with Hellboy facing a creature that was both larger and rooted in ancient myth. The battle was a mix of raw power and strategy. Hellboy used his supernatural strength and fighting skills, clashing with the Yule Cat's might and agility, where ultimately the weakened and wild predator ran off. The birds were again in focus, as they were seen discussing how the Yule Cat, who is now beyond the sea, though weakened and incapacitated at present, might return someday for Hellboy again. In this issue, the story was cleverly framed as the The birds set the scene and were silent spectators, keeping an eye on the unfolding events. The birds were like the narrators of the old Greek play, from pointing out the serendipity of Hellboy's arrival in Iceland to the ominous and abrupt exit of the Yule Cat to even hinting that their paths might cross again. This little touch leaves the door slightly ajar for future tales. Back at BPRD headquarters in Connecticut, it is Christmas, and Hellboy, alongside his colleague Kate, is embracing a cozy Icelandic Yuletide tradition, swapping books to read on Christmas Eve. Hellboy is ready to share more Nordic tales, a peaceful moment in an otherwise usual supernatural chaos. The scene is tranquil, almost picture-perfect, but there is this feeling it's the quiet before the storm. The comic really nails Hellboy's character with its classic no-frills style of action. No over-the-top theatrics or flash, just solid, good old-fashioned brawling, a perfect match for Hellboy's down-to-earth brawler persona. This issue, while light on complexities, is still a fun read because of its straightforward, punchy approach to action and storytelling. It is a great blend of Hellboy's world with a touch of Icelandic folklore wrapped up in a holiday setting. The comic is part of Mike Mignola's larger Hellboy series with a story that is sharp and full of folklore undertone. This standalone issue shines in how swiftly and smartly it moves. Mignola's got this skill of blending folklore into the now and present, which makes everything seamless. The creative team consists of writer and artist Matt Smith, colorist Chris O'Halloran, and letterer Clem Roberts, and they dive right in. They had just 22 pages, but they used every inch to draw the readers in, ramping up the tension and delivering a finish that leaves us nodding in approval. Matt Smith steps into the Mignolaverse with flair, maintaining his unique style while keeping true to the universe's spirit. He nails Hellboy's character, from his laid-back way of dealing with creepy, otherworldly stuff to his interactions with others. Chris O'Halloran's colors set the perfect tone right off the page. The muted grays and whites bring the chill of an Icelandic winter, painting the small-town setting, while his use of blues and grays drags the readers into the Nordic cold. Then the flashes of unnatural light and mystical fog in the climax pull the reader deeper into the baleful and maligned tale. Clem Robin's lettering is superlative, especially during the big face-off between Hellboy and the Yule Cat. Every hit and swipe is felt, adding real weight to the action. Visually, Hellboy the Yule Cat stands shoulder to shoulder with the best in the series. The blend of action, myth, and eerie visuals make it the perfect read for a terrifying Christmas Eve vibe. And if I'm being honest, the Yule Cat here is so unnervingly portrayed, I might start giving my own cat some suspicious glances.